Occasionally I get asked questions to me that I feel a bit funny, but they ask me who I am and where I come from and a little bit about my background and what got me started, all that sort of stuff. Well, a couple of days ago I had an interview with a guy who's starting up his own Facebook page, or sorry, YouTube page, and he just cottoned onto what I was doing. He thought, well, that'd be an interesting story to find out all about Muzza. So he asked me and I gave him an interview. And I think he's got a great idea for a YouTube channel, because a lot of people are interested in seeing what it takes and who's behind the scenes, or what steps and how long it took to become a YouTuber. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the interview that he did straight after this. But I'm going to ask you one big favour. Do me a favour and hit his subscribe button. And I'm going to leave it in the description. I'm going to put it under here. And I'm also going to put it in the tags at the very end of the interview. So guys, subscribe to this guy. I think he's got a really good Facebook. He's got, I don't know what I'm saying, bloody YouTube channel. Yeah, look, I don't script any of this. It just comes out as waffle. But you guys seem to enjoy it. So enjoy what you're about to see. Enjoy meeting a little bit of Muzza in the background. I can talk with everyone else, but I'm not really big about blowing my own trumpet. So enjoy, guys. See you when you get here.
Murray Wilkinson, or Muzza, is living the dream in Bali. He's become a YouTube star with his videos on the do's and don'ts in the holiday playground. It's made him a favourite with the Balinese people.
Welcome to Tube Talk, where I'll be interviewing either virtually or in person content creators in the hope to learn more about the people that we subscribe to and we follow on YouTube. So my next guest isn't what the thumbnail suggests. He's been an executive in television, but now has retired in Bali, helping the Bali community while sharing the highs and the lows of living in Bali. Meet Muzza, the singlet-wearing, self-confessed bogan who lives in Bali. Murray, thanks for your time, mate, and welcome to Tube Talk.
Cheers, mate.
Mate, I'm not too sure how much you sort of got your head around where this idea of mine came from, but the objective of the next 30 minutes is just us and my very small number of followers. But I guess in your case, more of your followers actually get to know more about you as a bloke, and not necessarily about
cool.
not so much about your channel, but yeah. And I got the idea from I actually got the idea standing at a barbecue in Coral Bay 4 or 5 years ago, and as I've said to numerous people, if you could bottle some of these conversations, I reckon we'd all make a lot of money, because you know some of the characters that you meet when you're traveling or in life in general is just I think really gold. So, mate, look,
Absolutely,
look,
man.
I got a couple of questions here because my memory ain't so good. And like I said, the objective is to get to know Muzza the fella, right? So, brother, where do you originate from in Australia?
Born and bred in Orange, grew up in Sydney, travelled the world for the next 20 odd years, settled in New Zealand about 20 years ago. Did a lot of work around Australia and in different places, travelled around the world, worked for people like Channel 10 and did news reporting from Channel 7 and that for years ago.
Hang on, stop. So what did you do for Channel 7 in reporting? That's interesting.
Cameraman, editing, a news stringer. So if there was, I was out in the country areas of New South Wales. So if there was something happening, they'd jump on the phone and say, hey, duck over there and give us bushfires and just bits and pieces. Lots of, I was working, I ran my own job, my own business at the same time. So it was a sort of semi-permanent part-time situation. For quite a number, my family's been in television my whole life. My dad, we used to work with Kerry Packer and was one of his chief engineers and stuff. So I sort of came from a technical background,
right?
And I adapted it around what I was doing at any given time, and did documentaries and wildlife work, and worked with snakes and crocodiles and people like Neville Burns and Steve Irwin and people like that. So had a lot of fun traveling around the world, met some amazing people, and yeah, so all of that culmination of stuff that I've done in the past actually became a breeding ground for what I'm doing now, because one of my jobs for about 2 years over in the States was working on cruise ships, filming what we call a video log or a video diary, where we'd go out on all these little tours and we'd come back and we'd make a little 10-minute segue up of the tours, film the people walking in off the gangway, and every week you'd have a new batch of tourists. So it's a very, very much like a place like this. You've got a brand new batch of people coming in, going to the drag queen bingo or the activities and entertainment. And we're making up little vlogs all about them. But years ago, I met a young lady in Bali that we struck up a conversation with and became friends. And I came back several times before COVID. And then during the couple of years of COVID where we were stuck apart, at this stage, my career-wise, I was actually more into an executive sort of audio visual and technical sort of world, but back sort of behind the desk and not doing so much camera work anymore, just more pushing the teams around there and doing some more interesting sort of pushing the envelope in where technology is going, I guess, and following that up and being a consultant for tertiary education and people like that, telling them where technology is going and all of the sort of fun stuff. I love to sort of get my hands into what's behind it or where it's going and whatnot.
Okay,
so
yep.
Towards the end of COVID, my partner was attacked at knife point at an ATM. She was stuck here in Bali. She couldn't get back to where I was, and I couldn't get over here. So I did everything I physically could, moved mountains, and was one of the first people. Not only I was living in New Zealand, stuck in New Zealand, I was one of the first people in New Zealand vaccinated, so I could get out of the country as quick as possible. It still took months before they'd release me, and I had to do quarantine in Jakarta. And out of, I think normally in Bali there's like 6.5 million people a year from around the world coming to visit. The year that I got here, there were 45 people. So you can imagine going from millions and millions of people, like 1.5 times the whole population of Bali, to 45 people. Which barely fills one motel up. It was Bali was dead. There was nobody on the roads. No one could afford petrol. The people that were left here couldn't afford to go out and eat in restaurants or cafes because they would be lucky if they were making like $1 a day. And Bali was going broke in a really, really big way. A lot of the people that live in Bali are from Java and other bigger Indonesian islands, and most of them went back to Java. So it was almost like coming to a ghost town. And I decided that one of the things I could do while I was over here, because I'm not allowed to work in Bali because I'm not a local, and especially I'd come over on a special tourist business visa. I thought, well, I'll bring a couple of GoPros and a drone with me. My stepson was mad keen on becoming a YouTuber. I went, okay, well, I'll give him a bit of a boost while I'm here, and we'll have some fun. We've got plenty of time. We've got empty beaches, so we can fly drones and have as much sort of learning time as we want. And during that process, I realized that Bali was in such a desperate situation that I started to help the people in Bali just to go out there and supply a bit of food and some nutrition and a bit of help. And we started recording it. We started vlogging, and I started just on Facebook. I talked about where it was at the time. There was a few people stuck in Bali. I think there was 110,000 expats that were living in Bali from around the world because they couldn't move and couldn't go anywhere else. So through that very simple and very humble beginning, we started to tell people about what was going on. And I guess I was Johnny on the ground. I was in the right place at the right time because suddenly we had issues with whether the visas were open or not, whether the planes were coming or going. There was false starts about when they were letting people into Bali. And so many people, many, many Australians especially, come to and from Bali like at least once or twice a year. So not being able to come home, their standard sort of getaway, they were looking around at what the hell's happening in Bali, and they're sponsoring people over here. There was families who didn't have a single dollar to bless themselves. So many families in Australia were sending $50 a month over or whatever to try to support villages, to support families and keep the ball rolling. And they connected with what I was doing over here, and I was trying to tell a story that in some ways would help Bali. Now, it's not just to help the Balinese, it's to help the people in Australia that are coming over here, the people that want to come over here and want to know where to come. It was to help me as well, and definitely my family over here, because I came over, I think everyone had the COVID blues. I know I had 10 kilos of excess baggage, and that was around my tummy. And I didn't have a lot of money, but I had a camera and I was able to tell a story. So I started not even 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
And very quickly within, I think I started the channel in about January, within 4 or 5 months, we had got to the threshold of where we were monetized. So you have to have, I think it's 1,500 subscribers and 4,500 hours or something like that. It's been a while.
I'll give you the tip. Something I don't have to worry about at this stage.
Hey, I tell you what, it's surprising how quickly it happens. Once you've got something that's working, and this could be a good thing for you, because there are currently watching my channel this month in the last 28 days. And I look on the statistics every single day. I promise you there's some tricks to making YouTube work. And one of them is to understand what works for you, what doesn't. I tried very much to do a bit of a stuffy sort of a t-shirt and collar, not a tie, but to do a bit of a getaway show style presentation or something that was a little bit more factual, and it didn't work, and it was very, very slow. People saying thank you for showing us what you can, but then I started making mistakes and not editing them out, and people started loving them, and they were laughing at me, and I started laughing at myself. And my show, my channel, Muzza in Bali, is raw and uncut, and there's a bit of singlet wear, and there's a few bourbons or a couple of bintangs there, but people liked it because it was a bit real and it wasn't manufactured. It wasn't cash for comments. It was authentic, and it was just. And I'd say, listen, I'm not an expert. I'm just a bloke in Bali telling you like I see it. And people would come on and say, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, maybe I don't, but I'm telling you as I see it and what I'm seeing. And as I grow and as I learn more, then maybe I'll change my mind. But at the moment, if you had been over here at the same time, you'd probably say the same things. Now, one thing that I guess gave me a very, very distinct edge over any of the Instagrammers or any of the popular vloggers that had been here or been stuck here was my fiance, my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, was living in a village in a bedroom that had a tiny, you wouldn't call it an ensuite. It had a second room at the back with one of those squat toilets in it. It had no kitchen. It had a bucket out the front so you could do the dishes in a plastic bucket with a hose. You showered with a ladle and a plastic bucket that was in the toilet. And it was very, very different to what anything that I've grown up understanding. Now, I've lived in Africa. I've traveled around with my camera work, and I don't mind going camping. I don't mind going and roughing it. But I tell you what, when I moved over here, living that life for 12 months just about did me in. It was so difficult medically, emotionally, financially. It was such a massive compromise. I'm in my mid to late 50s now, so I'm not doing it as a 27-year-old backpacker. I'm doing it as an older man who's suddenly adopted a teenage boy as a stepson and an Asian wife or Asian partner who's never really understood the West and been ever with a Western man.
Yeah.
So there was a big learning curve. And during all that, I'm not allowed to work. And I've come from a situation where I was earning lots of money before. Now I've got none at all, and none more coming through. So the only thing
you're fully retired.
Yeah, no. If I went back tomorrow, I could start work again. But I lost my job at the beginning of COVID because I was an international sales manager. And there's no international sales when you can't jump on a plane and go and see people. So I was technically unemployed when I got here. I had a little bit of savings, but I was living on a little tiny bit of money I had left aside, and hoping that we could get YouTube up and running. And after, by June, I think it was, I got here just before Christmas. By June, we'd started making a little tiny bit of income. I think my first paycheck was July, and it was like $200 or $60, and I'd bounce between $50 or $80 and $200 something a month. And there was a lot of loopholes or a lot of things to go through to get even just to that first point. I applied through the YouTube Partner Program to become certified, and that takes 30 or 60 days to sort of get processed, and then you've got to prove your bank account, and there's a whole rigmarole to do it. But once you get to that point, by the time you've got 1,000 followers and you've got 3,000 or 4,000 hours of watch time, people actually sat down watching your videos, that you still need momentum. You still need good quality content. You need to be able to put a show together that YouTube can sell to an advertiser. So they want to know that the content's good, that it's not stupid, boring, misleading, unlawful, etc., etc. So there's a whole heap of checks and balances because technically I work now for YouTube or for Google, and I get paid by Google for the amount of ads that they play on my shows. So before it starts rolling and like, it took about 12 months to get to a point from when I first sort of broke the skin and got that first tick of monetization to get to a sort of steady income level of about $200 a week, which is probably half what I get if I was sitting at home on the dole. So the lucky thing about $200 a week is over here in Bali, that goes a long way.
Yeah.
I can go down to the shop and get a nasi goreng or a fried rice for $1.50.
Mate, do you have tell me, do you have a favourite warung close by?
There's a whole heap of them.
Do you have a favourite?
I've got my favourite over here is a Bubby Gouling place, and I don't even know the name of it, but Bubby Gouling is like suckling pig that's roasted whole. And oh my God, it's nice. It can be spicy, but it's just beautiful. I travel so often that one of my favorite meals over here is bakso, and it's like meatballs in a clear broth in a clear soup. And it's got no carbs, which is one of the big things. I'm diabetic, so I try to keep the carbs except for beer as far away as I can.
And the bourbon. And the bourbon.
Like I went to shot you on. I'm trying to sound legitimate here. But I won't call you that's my major vice, and it's and it's keeping me healthy. But the food, I had problems with acclimatizing to the food. It's different. It's very, very different coming here for a couple of weeks than it is coming here to live. And I say this, one of the biggest, most successful video episodes or video series I've done on my channel is talking about moving to Bali, retiring in Bali, or simply living in Bali, because there are tens of thousands of mostly Aussies, mostly around my age, sort of getting up to around the retirement age, going, I would love to move to Bali and retire. Now, guess what, guys? You can do it, ladies and gentlemen, of course. You can do it. It's bloody tough. You've almost got to, if you're going to move over here permanently, you've got to sell everything you've got because you can't bring anything with you. You've got to walk away from your family and friends and be prepared that people are going to die before you get a chance to get back. I lost my sister. Luckily, I made it back on an emergency flight, and I was there for probably 30 minutes before she took her last breath. And it was tough being away from my own. I've got 2 grown-up kids, and my dad's now 85, and he's got great health, but I'm living on the other side of the world now. So look, it's still only 6 or 8 hours to get home, but the cost of the emotional cost and the physical cost of being here doing what I'm doing goes above and beyond where I'm going to stay, how close is it to the beach, and how much is it going to cost each month, because it's way more. And so look, I've got a great audience because I'm living it as I'm doing it, and I'm living in not the most opulent surroundings. I'm not over here with millions of dollars in the bank, living in a villa with a pool, and I found an abandoned house, spoke to the owner and said, let me do the house up so I can live there cheap. And he's given me a 5-year lease at a very, very good price, but we had to sink a lot of money in just to put a roof back on it and to build doors because it was a wreck. It gives me a unique perspective on Bali. I'm living with a Balinese or with a local lady. She's originally born in Sumatra, but I'm living as a local in a village. To get into the village, we had to go to the local chief of the village. And this is in the middle of Denpasar. This is downtown Bali. And ask for permission for me to move here.
So stop, hang on. So did you just say you're living in a village outside of Denpasar or in Denpasar?
No, you're right in the middle of Denpasar.
So you're living right in the heart of Denpasar.
20 meters that way is the main road right through Denpasar and out to Sanur and up through the Renon. So Bali is very, very much unlike almost anywhere, certainly anywhere I've been in Indonesia. It's still village based, and you've got these little tiny villages, or so there's sort of suburbs, I guess, and they can have anywhere from 600 to 6,000 homes within that little cluster. And there's a school, there's locally owned, there's a little Banjar office, which is like a little council chambers, a meeting place. They have their own internal police, which do all the things in that village and keep the peace. They look after funerals and celebrations. So that you pay a small fee, and it's usually like $5 a month or something for the banja, for the local town police to look after your street and to keep the place clean and to look after you as well. But you have to apply to the head of the village. I'd like to come and stay here, please. Now, when you're on a holiday or you're staying in a motel, that's a designated sort of public space with people coming and going. But if you live here, to get your local identification, to get bank accounts, to get a license or something, you need to have a domicile. You need to have a piece of paper or a card that says you're a resident. You've got to have the right visa, of course, and you've got to be approved as to where you live. So you can't be an itinerant. You can't be just hopping from place to place, and you wouldn't want to anyway, because, as I said before, living here and holidaying here is a so different experience. So having gone through all of that firsthand, I talk about basically day-to-day everything. I don't have an agenda. I don't have a calendar. I love to say I'm so prepared and so up with it. I know what I want to do.
Hey, listen, I've got to tell you, these questions that I've written down here, mate, you have answered 3/4 of them, and I have not even spoken a word yet. So you have covered everything.
I've done it once or twice. I scanned the questions and I thought, I know what you need to know.
Oh, okay. Hey, but listen, okay. So so you're living in Denpasar, but if money wasn't an object, in Bali or the surrounding islands, do you have somewhere where you would love to go and live, other than Denpasar, if you had a choice?
I'm looking to buy myself for a future, and probably Jimbaran, which is just a sort of little bottom bit of Denpasar. It's in the greater city of Denpasar, but yes, I would probably stay. There are some beautiful areas in Bali. Up the north around Ahmed, there's some incredible snorkeling and scuba diving.
Oh,
you can buy an acre of land up there for $17,000 overlooking the water.
Still,
now it's in remote areas. You've got 2 or 3 hours to get out of town to get up there. But I'd love to build a holiday house for myself. Nusa Penida and Nusa Lembongan and Chenegan, the islands just off Sanura, are unbelievable. If I live to be too old,
so pick one. No,
I don't think I can.
Oh, come on.
I don't think I can.
Mate, come on.
There's so many. There's so many amazing places.
Amazing.
As I get older, I'd probably have to say Sanura or in that general region, just because the facilities and the services are there.
Good hospitals.
There's a great camaraderie with us old buggers. There's a lot of Aussies that live there.
Yeah.
There's some really good pubs. There's some great food. They don't have the craziness that you've got in Leggy and Semiak. That's just gone crazy. Everyone's moving down sort of further west towards Canggu and Barawa, and it's just an absolute fight. I'll sanitize it. It is traffic chaos, and it's people everywhere, and there's a lot of international tourists. A lot of international residents have come over, escaping what's happening over in Europe at the moment, and it's just changed the whole sort of look and feel of it. I don't like the hustle and bustle. I came here to semi-retire. I would love to retire close to the beach. I'd love to be able to set up and do something nice and passive. What we've ended up doing with all of the humanitarian work is I've retired and I've never been busier in my whole life. I'm rattling around every day, meeting people. It's public relations as much. If you want to maintain a channel that deals with interacting with people, you've got to spend a lot of time interacting with people every single day. I'm riding around, and so it's really useful for me to be here in the middle of Denpasar, because I'm 15, 20 minutes from Sanura, I'm 20 minutes from Semiak, I'm 15 minutes from Kuta and Leggy.
So central.
I could be right in the middle, and on pretty good roads. It's not sort of it's main thoroughfares, not little side roads and back alleys. And for what I'm doing, that makes a lot of sense. Plus, my stepson goes to school just around the corner, and my wife owns a school canteen cafeteria on the school where he goes as well. So we're sort of close to where they need to be, and I'm close enough that people are coming that want to come over to see us or to help with what we're doing with the charity can come to us now, and they can be a part of what we're doing without it sort of being too difficult to get anywhere. So
all right. Muzz,
it's convenient.
Muzz, I'm conscious that I've got to I've only got you for another 10 or so minutes. So if it's okay, can I just quickly throw a couple of questions at you?
Go for it.
And that is, tell me three things, three things that you actually love about living in Bali. What are your top three things you'd love about living in Bali?
The weather.
Yep.
Even in the wet season, I love it. I love singlet tops and bikinis. Not personally, but I love the weather. I love hot weather. I grew up in Orange. It was freezing cold. I hate it. And I went from there to New Zealand, and that was just as cold. So the weather is probably one of my biggest things. The attitude and the spirituality of the people over here. Now, there's a lot of bogans. There's a lot of negativity about what Bali's all about. But if you've been here more than once or twice, and you've ever been up into the outback of Bali, the villages and the mountainous regions, and met some of the elderly and met some of the locals and just got to know what's behind the people of Bali. Their culture is so incredibly spiritual. It's all about karma and being good to each other and being right and proper. Even their system of, or their lack of system of driving works only because each one respects the other. There's no road rage. There's no get out of my way, you cut me off. It's all, I'll give you a chance. We'll all sort of fluidly move together. So the people by far, the opportunities as well, I think it's given me an opportunity to just be Muzza. I'm just Murray. I'm just a guy out there doing my thing. But there's so much call for what I'm doing that even though I'm not back in the corporate world like I used to, I'm glad that I'm not, because I'm using a little bit more of emotional Murray and a bit more of it's a hard slog sometimes, but it's a lot of fun, and I get to be party Murray because there's so many people coming over. Hey, we've got to get together and have a beer, and going out to lunch and to dinner, and it's a lifestyle. It's completely an open, free lifestyle. We don't have Big Brother looking over our shoulder every 2 minutes. They don't have red light cameras and breathalyzers, and thank God for most people, to be honest. But you only get pulled over if you're doing something wrong. It's not like Big Brother's always there with point-to-point speed cameras saying you sped by 2 kilometers an hour over that last 150 kilometers. It's free. You talk about Australia being the land of the lucky, and that I think Australia's lost a lot of its identity, and they're getting more concerned over politics and over worrying about fringe people and just forgetting about the individuals that's there. So to me, it was a case of going somewhere where I could relax, going somewhere where it could just be me. There's a lot of similar daggy, bogan people around here that are just proud to be who we are. And I don't pretend to be someone. I enjoy being who I am. And in doing that, I'm actually giving a lot back to Bali, which fills a whole massive side of my who I am and what I stand for. And we've spent 2 years looking after other people, handing meals and bedding and clothing and that out to hundreds of people, thousands of people. And so that's, I guess, the biggest part of rewarding is giving back and being not just here as a sponge, not here as a tourist, not here as an old guy just sitting there. Someone wrote me a very negative comment on one of my YouTube videos about old blokes coming over here to drink piss and sit by the pool all day. Well, I tell you what, I was on Komodo Island chasing Komodo dragons. We were on a private sailboat traveling from one island to the next, diving with manta rays, diving with a 77-year-old war veteran that came over for the holiday with us, living life like you couldn't afford to do in Australia. Honestly, what you can do over here for a few dollars, you could live here comfortably, rent a side for about easily $500 Australian a month. Wow. And you can buy places, or you can rent a house easily for $500 a month.
Yeah, cheers to that, Muzz. So, Muzz, what's the third thing you love about living in Bali?
Well, I guess I've mashed the last two together, but number one would be the weather, the climate, Number two is the people, and the lifestyle, the freedom. Number three by far is the chance and the opportunity to give something back. I spent my life as a consumer. I've been one of these guys with he who dies with the most toys, and I had the fancy boat, and I had a Harley Davidson, and I had a nice car. And over here, I've got rid of all of that. I've managed to sell my bike at home and buy another motorcycle over here, which I don't get to ride because the traffic over here is just insane. But I've spent 2 years giving back and of giving back when Bali needed it the most. They were so poor, and there was so much starvation that
Wow.
being here and having that chance to help someone else that's got less than I have, and I've got very little, has been something that will fulfill me the rest of my life. We take people up to the villages almost every week now to show them and to give them a chance to also share a little bit of money, a little bit of love, some rice, some bedding, some blankets, and whatever. And it's taken a life of its own. We're now actually turned into a registered charity, or over here they call it Yayasan. We've helped to feed tens of thousands of meals. We've helped to clothe and to look after thousands of people. And I tell you what, if in your retirement you could turn around and say, I've helped a man who hasn't worked 5 years with a pair of crutches and a wheelchair to become mobile and start living a life that he thought he'd lost completely. I've turned into a bloody big wuss too, because yesterday we were out in a village in the side of up near Lake Batur. I looked at one of the people that we'd taken up that was donating to this village, and he turned around, he had tears trickling down the inside of his glasses, and it just broke me up as well. It was such a beautiful thing that we were doing. These old ladies and the families with 4 kids that hadn't eaten a decent meal or didn't have clean clothes or fresh whatever for so long, and just to make a little tiny impact on their lives, it's the most satisfying part of our job, and the best thing about being in Bali.
Yeah, mate, it can't be all good though. I mean, so if I was to ask you, what are the 3 things you hate about living in Bali, or dislike the most?
It sounds stupid. Ham and cheese sandwiches. I can't go down at Coles or Woolies.
Hang on, stop. So your number 1 of 3 things that you dislike the most about living in Bali?
No, I can't get ham and cheese sandwiches. I can't.
Fair enough.
I can't pop down to the shop and get a sausage roll.
Is that number 2?
There is.
Is that number 2?
No, ham and cheese and sausage rolls are food.
Okay.
It's your creature comforts that you don't get. You can get your nasi goreng for $1.50. You can get all the food over here. It's cheap as, and you can buy sausages and pies over here, but they're $5 and $10 each. And to be honest, they're not as good as my local chippy down the road. So it's the creature comforts that you don't have, that you don't mind for a week or two, but when you live here all the time, you can't buy a leg of ham, and it's almost impossible. You can buy slices of ham and the bread here is terrible. I don't even get off my high horse, but a lot of the food here is so different to what I'm used to.
Okay, so
they do more of a roti sort of sweet bread over here, which you can't put Vegemite on their bread with butter on it because it's just it's horrible. So not having access or having expensive or very limited access to the things like corned beef and stuff that just nice to have, or you can get them, and they're such an expensive item that unless you're earning a lot more than I am, you don't get an opportunity to get to. So that's definitely a disadvantage. The next disadvantage would be by far being stuck far away from home when something goes wrong, either at this end or that end. Because if something does go wrong, you could argue that it's only a 6-hour flight home, but it would cost me $2,000 just to go and see my sister. And it was really hard to have to leave that and leave all my family on my dad's 85th birthday and fly home again. So being away from the family and setting up a base somewhere else when they know you're not coming home in a few months' time, you're not just running away or going over there. It's quite a long way away, and it's complicated. It's difficult getting here just because it's more expensive than popping over to New Zealand or down to Tasmania or something. Not that Tasmania's a different country, but it might be. But being away from your family, I've got a beautiful family over here, and I go up to Sumatra, and I've met my wife's family a number of times, and they've come and stayed here with us as well. But it's not the same. It's not the same as, when your kids need a hug or something goes wrong or someone's sick or whatever. You want to be there, and I physically can't afford just to jump on a plane and duck over there every time someone gets cooked. So that's a hard thing to be living in another country.
Number 3.
I got married. So number 3,
What's the third thing that you find difficult about living in Bali?
Bali's
Ooh.
a very, very different place to do anything. And it was really hard for me to understand. I took my watch off and I lived by my watch, and I was an executive, and I made my appointments and made my meetings and made a lot of money doing what I do really well. But over here, you've got to throw the rule book out the window. You've got to have more integrity than most people have in business to get the respect back that you need to be able to function over here. I don't speak good Bahasa, and most of the locals in the tourist areas, they speak good English. But outside of the tourist areas, I don't live in a tourist area. I live in town. So for me to go to a hardware shop and get a hammer and nails, you go to one hardware shop, they'll sell you a hammer. You've got to go somewhere else to get the nails. It's so frustrating trying to understand the system. I've done a couple of videos about where the hell's Bunnings, because it just, I can't tell you how hard it is to get wood glue. Me and my mate Alan spent 4 hours driving around Bali looking for some white PVA wood glue so I could make this bloody Bali thing behind us. Do you think we could find it? We eventually found it. Then my wife turned around and said, "Why didn't you go around the corner? They've got it there for $1.50."
They probably had it at the Foursquare, mate.
Yeah. There's different protocols, there's different customs, different traditions, different just different ways of doing things. And I've found if you walk into a shop and they don't have exactly what you've asked for, they'll say, "No, we don't have it." And you go, "It's right there on the menu." No, not that one. And it's easier for them to not try to learn what it is you want and just to say, "No, you haven't." So it's frustrating. It's very, very frustrating. And you've got to learn to relax and to not let it bother you, because otherwise it will get to you, because it gets to me every now and then still.
I think they call it Bali time, don't they?
Bali time is just take your watch off, throw it away, and you'll get there some stage.
Just to mate, congratulations on your channel. Like you said, a couple of years, and I don't know how many subscribers do you have as of today?
21,000 plus now, but 550,000 people around the world watching every month.
Congratulations.
So mate, it's massive, man. It's taken me suddenly to the next level. It got to about 13,000, and then current affair, someone wrote to him and said, "Hey, there's a guy over in Bali called Muzza who's got a YouTube channel, and if you want a good news story about an Aussie in Bali, well, here's this tattooed singlet wearing self-confessed bogan." That's what they call.
Can I use that in my thumbnail?
Singlet absolutely,
self-confessed bogan. Hey,
that's the one. And to be honest, that opened a lot of doors. That gave me probably 3,000 subscribers straight away. People that probably normally wouldn't have found me online. They found me, and that's sort of helped to set it off. But it's taken, I've done nearly 400 videos, and that means nearly one every single day. There's a lot of work goes in behind the scenes. If you want to make a channel on YouTube, I came from a professional television background. I've got Premiere Pro editing suite. I don't do the little short film versions of TikTok and all the shorts and stuff like that, because I'm too bloody busy working the long form videos and doing it in my style, just as ad hoc, and it seems to be working for me. So I'm not going to change that formula. People say, "Oh, but if you change it up," I've done a few different versions of the videos I've done and got almost no traction on them. So the secret to being in YouTube, to me, is there's a few analytics software packages that I subscribe to, which give me really thorough numbers, helps to give me suggestions on what AdWords or keywords to use, and they're minimal. They're a couple of dollars a month, but I absolutely follow them and study them. How you develop your thumbnails is one of the most critical things that you'll ever do if you're setting up a YouTube channel. You've got to leave customers going, "What's this all about?" The minute they look at that thumbnail, "Oh, that's interesting." Look at what attracts you to different pictures or to different vlog or websites, and you go, "Oh, I wonder what that's about," or "I wonder what happened next," or you look at whether it's a picture or the text or whatever. I've sort of got a style of text that I use for my vlogs, and it sort of identifies me. That's another Muzza video. But I don't do the clickbaity stuff. I've been slammed for putting stuff in that's a little bit too suggestively not accurate. But there are some topics that I've done about. I got attacked and robbed. They tried to get my gold chain, and I've had a few rants and whinges at different times about the crime or about pickpockets or about different things happening over in Bali. Some of them have gone down very well. Some of them, I've got one that's going at the moment that's had 150,000 views, which is massive, and 750 comments, half of which are very negative. But if you look at the video, I'm actually saying, is it bad or is it the same as it's been? And I'm giving samples of what the content is all about. But it's a big job to keep that momentum happening. And as soon as something goes wrong and you lose it, it takes a lot of time to build that momentum back up. You get people start to follow you and they go, yeah, he's done the same thing over and over again. If you can keep the content fresh, if you can keep the people interested in talking to, and you keep consistent, you'll build it, and you'll be surprised how quickly it'll start once it starts to kick off. So,
mate, congratulations, and I can't thank you enough for your time. Tell you what, mate, I've actually feel like I've overspent 20 minutes because we only had half an hour. So thank you, so, mate. No, really appreciate it. Thanks again. I'll send you a copy once I've done the editing, and enjoy.
Yes, mate, and yeah, I'll put a link to yours. You put a link to mine. Hopefully, we'll both get something out of it.
Thanks, Muzza. All the best, mate.
Cheers, buddy.
Have a great
Cheers,
afternoon.
Mate.
Thanks again.
Okay, bye.
Bye for now. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell. We're for now.